and spent over 80 days apart from her son, her in Shanghai, and her son back in Wuhan. And the reason why I wanted her on to tell the story is because we think about gratitude. We've talked a lot about having gratitude and being thankful for what we have, even during these tough times. And when she shared with me that she had been without her son for almost 4 months, it really touched my heart because it made me think about just how thankful I was that I was locked in with my family. So, Cindy, welcome to the program, and we look forward to hearing more about your story.
Thank you, Colin, and thank you for inviting me. Hello, everyone. My name is Cindy. I am originally from Wuhan. It's in the middle of China. Before the virus, I think no one knows the city well, but now it's worldwide.
Yeah.
I lived there for all my life in the first 25 years, and I relocated to Shanghai about 10 years ago. I had got married in Shanghai and had my kids in Shanghai and working in Shanghai. Before the coronavirus, I sent my son back to my hometown. And on January 22nd, on my video call with my parents and my son, I told him, Mom is coming back tomorrow. Are you excited? Mom has bought lots of toys for you, and it's so great to see you again. Because last year I started to join a startup company, and I had to work 16 hours a day, and I have no time to taking care of him. So I want to take these chances to be fully dedicated to him with Chinese New Year holiday and to see all my families, my parents as well. And I told my dad that the virus is not getting good, so please also maintain the social distance. He said that it's not that serious.
Right.
And so we kind of have a little fight before I went to bed that night, January 22nd. But still, my train ticket is January 23rd, and I'm supposed to be back to Wuhan on January 23rd. The first day of city has been locked down.
Right. That's very, very interesting because you mentioned that your father, who's in Wuhan, as we know, the epicenter of the outbreak, and as late as January 22nd, he and other people in Wuhan didn't think it was that serious. And then overnight,
Yes.
everything changed. I know on a video before we talked about even outside of China, everything changed overnight. Everything changed. I mean, just that quick. And Wuhan was under, I'd say, tremendous lockdown. You mentioned earlier when you and I were talking that in Wuhan, you could not leave your apartment. I think once every few days you're allowed to leave your apartment. So share with us, as we paint the picture, what were the lockdown restrictions in Wuhan?
So even in whole human history, there's no ever have a city locked down like Wuhan because it has 10 million people there. And we have 5 million university students who are under mobility, and they travel back to their hometown and forth during Chinese New Year holidays. And after the lockdown, first of all, the whole public transportation has been stopped, and you cannot go anywhere with your car, with the public transportation. And very only few people have their own cars or motorbikes. And after a few days, even the personal cars is strictly forbidden to go out unless they have a permission.
Right.
And all the train, airplane went to the city has been closed. So in general, you cannot do anything. And after the city locked down, the first couple of days, we're still allowed to go out because there's still a lot of patients needs to go to the hospital, and their family has to take care of their patients. So in the first week, it was still allowed if you said that you have patient. But after that, when the government find out most of the patient has been treated well in the temporary hospital, no one is allowed to go out until you have a permission. And you are not allowed to go out, even go to the supermarket. So for those people who have disease, like my grandfather, he has diabetes, he has to use the medicine every day. Then there are some volunteers are sending over some medicines for everyone to keep their very basic level lives. And also they're giving people the vegetables and regular grocery shopping, so that making sure that every family can still have something to eat, and trying to minimize the distance of the infection from each people.
Right. You know, we talked earlier about how the main thing that you're concerned about. And it's very interesting because my assumption was you're very much concerned about your child. You miss being with your child. He's away in Wuhan during this time. We know that the coronavirus was running rampant in Wuhan. Maybe not a lot of news coming out of Wuhan, so I know you were concerned about that. But you also mentioned that due to the fact that this was in Wuhan a real restriction, right? You could not leave your apartment. So getting food, you mentioned earlier that they arranged for food to be delivered to your parents' apartment. However, you also mentioned that the prices were much higher. Now, not really price gouging. And price gouging is when I go out and I buy 10,000 masks for a nickel or 1 RMB, not selling for 10 RMB. That's price gouging. But you mentioned that all of the food prices in the first few weeks were much more expensive. And just worrying about how ensuring your parents had enough money and enough food to make it through. Take us through that process, because it's the first I've heard that making sure, be concerned that you had enough money to buy food during this time was a concern.
Yes, because there are two reasons. The first reason is every year in Chinese New Year holidays, the food price will be a little bit higher. That's very regular because all the farmers and all the shops will be closed. Very similar to your Christmas, that you can find no one is opening up. So to buy a food, it's difficult than regular. And the second reason is in these epidemic areas, no one is allowed to go out. Right. So that everyone is worried. So maybe someone buy a lot of the food and store at their homes so less people can buy, like what you have seen for toilet papers in US in March. That's very similar in Wuhan. So what we do is there are volunteer workers and property management workers at each community. They will have a WeChat group. So WeChat is application that we're using similar to WhatsApp. Right. So that every building have their own WeChat groups, and the volunteer and the registrars will ask you what kind of food you need. They will send it to a home every 3 days. So they will give you actually a checklist. On the checklist, there are vegetables, plenty of vegetables, and there are limited meat choices. But in general, you can still have enough food for your family to support these very difficult areas. And then they will deliver at your front gate so that you can be able to have the food and not be go out. Because the chances to be infected by this virus, we want to making sure as low as possible.
Right. And it's interesting. They also did very similar things here in Shanghai, in that deliveries could no longer be made to your front door. Everything had to be made at the gate. But it was still, to me, putting the delivery driver and security guards at risk. I mean, they're still coming into contact with the same amount of people, but it made sense. Here in Shanghai, we had as you know, we had a very low infection rate. I want to go back to your son. Prior to this, had you been apart from your son for more than a few weeks?
Not exactly, not this long. This was, I think, the longest moment of my life that I was apart from him. And I had missed the days I'm around with him, because he's grown so much bigger now and he learns so quickly. And before he can speak very limited words, right? He's still a little boy, a toddler in my eyes. Right. But during this period, he is much bigger. He can speak more than 1,000 words now. And every time you ask him a question, he can give very quick answer like an adult. I was really surprised, and I feel a little bit strange because he's still the same old boy, but a very different one. So I feel very regretted that I missed that period of his life, that I'm not around with him, and I cannot feel his pain, his happiness, his joyness.
Yeah, I think thankfully we still had video, right? You could still see him, but how did he adapt to that? I know January, February, March. How did he adapt to it over those 3 months?
So my son, he is a very even though he's very talkative, but if you relate it to the emotions, he kept everything in his heart. So even though he misses me a lot, but he rarely talk about it. So even though we were video calling, but I cannot see him cry. And he always show a smiling face. But my mom told me that he really misses me. So every time I told him about our past memories, he were quiet at night. And he sometimes have nightmare, I'm not there. So that breaks my heart. I don't want my son to have nightmare because I'm not around.
Right, right. And your husband also was in Shanghai as well, so he was there with the grandparents for that amount of time. Luckily, he had a lot of love in that house. I know that right now, a lot of in China, right back in February, March, and now in the U.S., a lot of my friends and colleagues and clients are telling me how much they are going crazy, right? Being with the family. And just last night, two close friends of mine shared that. And these two guys, they're not married. So they're literally have been by themselves in their home for 5 and 6 weeks. And they mentioned that, yeah, you may get tired of being with your family. When you're by yourself, it just really doesn't feel good for a long amount of time. So luckily, you had your husband here with you in Shanghai, and your son still had the grandparents and a lot of love there as well. But what it comes back down to is, again, that feeling of gratitude. If I think now about have been without my wife and my son for weeks, let alone months, it would have been a much different experience. And as good as, and people who are viewing this, as you know, people are using more video conferencing tools right now, and it feels good, but it's not the same. It's not the same.
It is not.
Yeah.
It is not.
And luckily, your son is now back in Shanghai, and
he's back.
You have this video, and I think we're playing the video now. We're going to play the video and take us through, the return, because the video is very intriguing because he is about to go land on the moon. Okay, he is in full gear. So take us through the idea of putting him in full gear, full PPE gear from Wuhan back here. And were there any issues getting him from Wuhan back to Shanghai?
So after April 8th, the city is resumed to work. So everyone can allowed to travel domestically. However, we are still worried about those non-symptom patients. So they're still carrying virus everywhere. And the train station is the public area where everyone travels, right? And that train station also very close to the original seafood market. It's only 1.5 kilometers away. So I was very, very much worried about him. So I bought him the full package of PPE and asked him to wear them. And that day in Wuhan is very hot. It's already 28 degrees. The Chinese degrees. So it's very, very hot. And those clothes are not very good at sending out the sweat. So he was sweating all the time.
Well, PPE should not be letting anything out.
Yes. Yeah. So and I was a little worried about the masks because he's still very young. I'm a son of 4 years. I don't really believe that he can wear the mask for 5 hours. That's the fast train from Wuhan to Shanghai. But actually he did. He never took off his masks. And I wear him a diaper inside of the PPE. So making sure that even he wants to pee, he can pee in the diapers.
Right.
And he never complained about the situation where it's too hot on his way back to Shanghai. All he has asked is, when can I see mom earlier? Is this train going to stop in Shanghai next minute? I want to see my mom so badly. I miss Shanghai so much. So that breaks my heart. He never complained, and he arrives in Shanghai about 8:30 that day. I went to the train station to pick him up. At the train station, when I saw him, I cannot stop crying because he was so vulnerable, you know. He's so young, he's so scared because he's still worried about this virus, but he's also very excited to see me. He's still wearing the whole PPE gears, and he seems fragile, and those facial expressions make me hold him so tight. I told him I never ever want to be apart from him again in my life. So I hold him.
It'll be a tight hug. I'm quite sure that was
yeah, yeah,
very
yeah. He is very heavy now, but still I cannot let him go. So I hold him tight, and I was holding his hand, say, "Please follow mom, and we're back to Shanghai. So you are safe now." So
Wow.
we took a train back. He's very safe now.
And so I assume your husband was there also, right?
Yeah, my husband will stay at home to make the food for him. So I went to the train station to pick him up.
Yeah, I bet that was a tremendous reunion, and it's very wow. And when you told me about this a few days ago, I was very shocked because I knew that there were some people who went home for Chinese New Year who were with their families, right? Because they went home for Chinese New Year. But I never realized that there are also families whose kids may have been home earlier and now can't move. And for a 4-year-old child, not being able to see mommy, see daddy, being inside for almost 4 months, it had to be, I don't want to say life altering because it's so young, but it had to have a great impact on his life. And, you know, I wish it would have been great to see that hug that you guys gave. I'm quite sure that was a deep hug, man, a lot of tears and whatnot. So I'm very happy that you guys were able to get back together. Were there any lessons learned during this time?
Well, so my heart still breaks a lot of the times during this period. Even though I not be able back to Wuhan to stay in Shanghai, I still feel very much people are scared of me. People want to keep us far away from me by I'm telling them I'm actually from the city of this virus.
Yes.
I during the very first few weeks, those people, I consider them as very good friends. They were just disappeared. I was very heartbreaking as well. I thought I never judge anyone from location, from their race, from nationality. I use my heart to communicate with my friends, but all of them are not behaving the same,
right.
and they were just disappeared. But I also see a lot of the doctors and the nurses flying all over the country to Wuhan to helping those people are in serious injured of this coronavirus. There's one picture that one of the doctors are sending 7 years old patient to see the checks, and during the way to the checking rooms, there is a sunset, and he stopped it to be with this old man to see the sunset, to still enjoy a good way of life. And then they went back to the hospital. A good news is that this 7 years old man is fully recovered.
Right.
So right after, he is actually a violinist. So after that, he was playing a violin to this doctor before the doctor goes back to Shanghai. So that was the moment that teach me most.
Yeah,
well.
Very touching. And I have, well, I say I experienced, but I've witnessed the change of how people interact with people who are from Wuhan. And it's a shame. I think people were just scared. And, you know, people were just felt that if you were in Wuhan, you were sick, right? So when folks back in Shanghai, as you said, met their old folks from Wuhan, they were very hesitant. I know that my wife would say, look, that car's from Wuhan. What are they doing here? and this is inside our residential area. And I'm like, they live here. And she was very, very concerned. So I'm glad that that time was over. I think one of the challenges we had was getting accurate news about what is taking place in Wuhan. So people were, I guess, trying to be very cautious and saying just in case, which wasn't the best way to go about it. But here we are, almost the end of April, and things have started to turn for the best or the better, I hope. So Cindy, thank you for sharing your story, because what I want people to take away from this is just being thankful and being aware of, even though things may be looking bad right now inside of your home, there's hope. Um, one of the best things about being separated is that reunion. And I can guarantee you that Cindy, you and your son are even closer now. Talking more, at least his vocabulary has improved. I'm glad. I thank you for sharing the story with us. And again, I hope that people really look and find that gratitude for what they do have, because these are tough times, but these are not the end of times, right?
Yes.
Things will get better. So Cindy, I'm going to ask you just to give us some very brief parting words, and hopefully we'll see you again on another episode going forward.
I want to say that kindness is a choice. I saw true humanity during this period, but I still believe that there are very, very kind people everywhere. And without those kind people, we are not going to survive. The city and the whole country is not going to have such little numbers with 1.4 billion people.
Right.
So I really thank for those people who helped Wuhanis. And like you, I want to thank you for inviting me, because I can spread out the information as a Wuhanese. And also I want to thank every volunteer from this virus. They're not charging anything, they're just trying to help. Right. So yeah, I'm really grateful for that as well. So thank everyone, and we survived, and I believe that better things will happen. I believe there's one Western word saying every cloud have a silver lining. Yes. That's my favorite words.
Yeah, everybody have a silver lining. So thank you again, Cindy. And I do want to really quickly just jump on what you said. One of the things that doesn't get spoken on is the amount of volunteers that helped all of China, but more specifically in Wuhan. A lot of volunteers were the ones who were carrying food in the hospitals, really helping people maintain their lives. So a big shout out to volunteers again. So Cindy Gong, thank you. I'll be seeing you again soon. Thank you for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thank you for today. Bye.
Hi, I'm Daniel with Buzz 365 Media. We do in-person and remote live stream video productions. If you are having technical difficulties setting up a virtual meeting, conference, or workshop, give me a call. Buzz 365 Media is here to help you.